In this session, we will talk about project planning. Namely, we will discuss time estimates, milestones, and activity sequencing. All projects consume resources, including time and money. And of course, in order to deliver a product of particular scope and quality as well. I mean, these are always in a trade-off, like the iron triangle in total quality management or something. Okay, you cannot achieve all of them at the same time. There are tension between them. Between the extent of resource input and the extent of product output. Of course, everyone wants perfect products with considerably low cost or considerably low effort, but of course this is ideal. What we try to do is try to make a balance between them. There is also a tension between project management activities and project development activities as well. As you see here, these are the project management activities, like time and resources by you. And the product development activities are related with the product itself, the scope of the product and the budget you have here. There is also a tension between them too. Now let's take a look at this part, okay? Let's take a look at this part. What are the main project activities? The project, I mean, this one, and also this one, okay. You mean, we will look at these in detail. Okay, the project management is concerned with planning the product of the project and controlling and checking project progress, monitoring milestones and deliverables, and managing risk as well. Ideally, it should not account for more than 10% of the overall effort, and it is also not evenly distributed. You should spend most of it towards the start, because you make a management plan. You just plan all of these in advance so that you can check them later on. Everything goes smooth. The product development is concerned with achieving the aims and objectives of the project, which you're aiming for, and producing the deliverables in accordance with the project plan. Our ultimate aim, what are our deliverables, what is our product, and optimizing the scope and quality of the deliverables relative to the resources available to get the best out of those resources and input and money. We're trying to get the best of them, best out of them. And let's take a look at the project stages from a project management perspective. So it mainly has 5 different stages. First, the definition of the project. We decide on a project or make a project proposal. We discussed about the proposals in the previous session. And the second one is planning, detailed planning of the project. It's important again. The third one is initiation, organizing work between the resources. In particular, it's about group work. For example, literature survey is done here too, related to your studies as well. You should also keep in mind that you need to have a plan, master plan, just like this for your Master of Science and PhD thesis as well. Is it a must? I think yes. But of course, you can go ahead without a plan, but I really don't suggest it. And the fourth one is about control, monitoring the progress of the project and takes actions if something goes wrong, so that you should always be alert or always be alerted so that you can keep things in control. And the fifth one is closure, delivering, deploying the results of the project preparing the final presentation, writing your project reports or thesis reports. This is the closure stage of the project. Now let's take a look at the first one, the definition here. We talk about a clear specification of what the project is to achieve, namely the definition of aims and objectives. What are those aims? Broad statements of intent, and which identify the project's purpose. Here you see the ultimate aim, your ultimate aim here. Here you see some examples below. Design a methodology for graphical user interface development of technical courseware materials, for example. Or develop and evaluate an artificial neural network to predict stock market indices. We will go ahead with this example throughout the session, just for understanding. That's it, just for example. And suppose that our example aim is develop and evaluate an artificial neural network to predict stock market indices. What could be the objectives here? I mean, you need to have some specific measurable achievements to make the jury or make the reader interested in your project. Like, you need to have quantitative and qualitative measures by which completion of the project can be judged. How can I understand this project is finished? Let's take a look at some objectives here down below. First one is complete a literature search and literature review of the existing stock market prediction techniques. You need this in your thesis as well. You need a part like this. And the second one is to develop a suitable artificial neural network model. This will be your method. And the third one is identify and collect suitable data for analysis and evaluation. You need data set to test or evaluate your system. And these data sets can be already available for the purpose of comparing research, or you can have a brand new data from a company, or you can have your data synthetically generated. Okay, it's the last resort, but that can also happen. And the fourth one is evaluating the model using appropriate statistical techniques. Okay, there are many techniques for evaluation. And finally, when you're done, you complete your final report as the last step. Now, these objectives here should be SMART. What do we mean by SMART? The first letters of the properties here. Each objective should be specific, measurable, appropriate, realistic, and time-related. As you see, these are briefly called SMART objectives. For example, let's take only one of those objectives, this one, for example, and think about them before, in advance. Complete a literature search and literature review of existing stock market prediction technique. Is it specific? Does it tell us what will be done? You see, I'm just having questions about all of them here. Is it measurable? How will we know to what extent and to what quality the objective has been completed? So the objectives need to have these answer this question as well. And is it appropriate? Does it is it related to and in the support of our aims? Yes. Is it realistic? Can we realistically expect to achieve this objective? Do we have the resources? Do we have the materials? Do we have access to relevant databases? Whatever. And is it time related? Have we identified how long the task will take and when we will complete it? We should also decide about it beforehand. Now, the second one is project planning. The objectives of project planning are identifying the tasks that need to be done, clarifying the order in which tasks need to be done, and determining how long each task will take. And if there is a problem here, this one is optional. Redefining the project if there are problems in this stage. We're talking about the project planning stage here now. You see, we're talking about this one. There are several steps of project planning again. You need to have a work breakdown. You need to have time estimates on them. We should identify the milestones. Then activity sequencing is important so that we can see slacks. Then scheduling and replanning, as you see, if it is required. It's optional. If there are mismatches or if you see some risks there, you can go ahead and replan your project. Now let's take a look at the work breakdown approach. The first step of project planning is work breakdown, identifying the tasks that need to be done one by one. Starting points should be the objectives of the project all the time, and then break your objectives into lower and lower levels of detail. This is, as you see this part, this is your, ultimate goal. See, this is your ultimate goal. And what we're doing is, this will help you to achieve your ultimate goal. And what are they? They are your, as you see, your objectives. As you see, 5 of them, like, are these? Yes, I guess. Okay. See? They match. And then you break all of them into smaller work packages. For example, this one coming from literature survey, this one becomes this one, and this one becomes this one, and this one becomes this one. Oops, I'm sorry, this one, and I'm sorry, this one becomes this one. Okay, this is, as you see, these are in these do not have any sub packages. Work breakdown structures are used to visualize the process of breaking down a project. Tasks at all levels need to be separate from one another, as you see, and you continue to break down your project into smaller tasks until each task, namely those will be the leaves of the project, take up, those leaves should take up no less than 5% of your total effort here. As you see, the leaves are what we're focusing on here. What are they? This one, 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 this one. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this one, 10 and 11. You see, you have 11 work packages here, and none of them should be less than 5% of your total effort. When you add all of these 11 up, of course it should be 100%, and none of them should be less than 5%. That's the idea, or that's the important thing, or this not important, but rule of thumb here. This is a rule of thumb, makes your life easier later. Then you go ahead and go with the time estimates. You make reasonably accurate predictions of the effort needed for completion of a task and the duration until the completion. Here you see, you usually write here work hours, the effort. Suppose that you work 5 days a week and let's say 6 hours per day in net, for example. It means that suppose that your literature search will take 2 weeks of effort in maybe, okay, this is for each week, and since you have 2 of it, maybe 30 hours of literature search it will be your effort. However, you cannot assign all of your duty or all of your time into it. This is the duration until its completion, depending on how much time you spend on it. Okay, this is how you build up or estimate what your work packages, efforts and durations will be. Of course, this is the most important part here. These will be critical and crucial. Okay, you first define this, then go ahead and estimate the duration for this. If the estimates exceed the total time available for the project, for example, for masters, your maximum is 3, and for PhD, I guess your maximum is 7 years, for example, then either modify the objectives, you should modify the objectives and work their time to reduce and reallocate time between tasks. If there's a problem here, see, if you add everything up and the duration is 40 weeks, and suppose that you have been given 36 weeks for the project as deadline, it means that you have a problem. You have to go back and make an update, reevaluate the time estimates here. This is how we can see it. And then we need to identify the milestones, which is called the milestone identification step. Milestones are the significant steps towards the completion of the project, like the intermediate goals at which to aim. Okay, this is your ultimate aim, but as you see, you have several milestones here during this run. And what are they? For example, it of course depends on your project. For example, this one is your, okay, these are all your milestones here. As you see, after the fourth one, the project will be finished. You can identify some of the works here as your milestones. Here in this example, the ones in red are your milestones here, as you see. Now, activity sequencing is important. The work breakdown structure does not state in which order tasks are performed. As you see here, look at this. I mean, in which order these tasks will happen, we don't know. We don't have an idea. So to represent the order and interdependency, like the dependency between tasks, we can use activity networks. There are two approaches here, activity on the node diagrams and activity on the arrow diagrams. Here, in this session, we will talk about the example of activity on the node diagrams. Two representations are possible, in fact, but we will only focus on activity on the node diagrams. On the activity on the node diagrams, the tasks are represented by rectangular nodes, as you see here, and milestones are represented by diamond-shaped nodes. Diamond-shaped nodes as like this. Your milestones are represented like this. And arrows indicate the order in which they need to be performed. You see that task B and task C are coming right after task A is finished, and task D happens only after task B and task C are finished. As you see, I like explanation. Task A has to be completed before task B and C can start, and task B and C can be done independently in parallel. These can go ahead together. Most probably, you can distribute these tasks into two people. It will be beneficial if you do that. Oops, I'm sorry. It would be beneficial. Okay. And task D, of course, can only start once both tasks B and C are completed. Assume we estimate effort and duration for the four tasks as follows. Task A like this, B like this, as you see like this. You can easily see that efforts cannot be larger than duration. Okay, it's impossible, I mean logically impossible, but that's the idea, and we concluded that the duration will be like this. Also, we can assume that the project starts on 1st of January at the beginning of the year. Each month has 4 weeks, there are no breaks, holidays, etc. We just assume it. And what would be the start date for each of the tasks? As you see, since task A takes 4 weeks, this can start in February 1. This one is February 1 also, February 1st also. Then B and C finishes at 4 weeks again, March 1. So task D can start here at March the 1st. Okay, task D is starting date. And what is the start date of each task? And we can see that all of these representative, of course, this one is January 1 for task A. The critical path is important. It is the longest duration path through this network. It identifies the tasks in the project that must not be delayed. There are no tolerance. Any delay on this path, it means that your project will get delayed as well. Any delay on the critical path, you see, suppose that your project will end up in 40 weeks, but suppose that you have a 2-week delay in your critical path, it means that your project will finish in at least 42 weeks. It means that it will have an effect, a direct immediate effect on your output. So critical path is important. How do we determine the critical paths? We can work backwards from the end to start, from our ultimate goal to start. As long as there is only one preceding task, this task must be on the critical path. Suppose that you have something here and it goes back, like you need to finish the first one so that the second one happens here, like this one. It means that this should be on the critical path. But if there is a situation like this, like if you have multiple options when going back, this one and this one, for example, if you look from here, this part, you see that there are two alternatives here. You take the, longest one. If there are more than one preceding task, only the tasks which for the start of the next task are on the critical path. Okay, it means that they will be on the critical path. You can expect that there can be more than one critical path as well. It's also expected. Now the group work. Working in groups, construct an activity on the node diagram for the example stock market project based on our example project. As you see, we just did the priorities between those tasks with the dependencies. We defined 2 milestones: completion of the literature review and the completion of the project report. You see, this is your milestone 1 and this is your, you see, milestone 2. Okay, and these are the dependencies going back from this one to backwards. Determine the start dates for each task and determine the critical path for this project based on all these dependencies. Okay, the second one cannot start before first one is finished. 11th waits for 10th to finish, and 10 waits for 9 to finish, and 9 waits for 8 to finish. But what is 8 waiting for? 8 is waiting for 6. And what is 6 waiting for? Like 6 can start directly, for example. Get stock data market. It's okay. We will see. When you make this, put these numbers in each box and agree that these are your milestones here. You can see what is on the critical path here. Okay, as you see that this one is like on the critical path. They have only one predecessor. You see, and you can see that there are 2 alternative paths here, like to go, and but you cannot decide them easily. Although their start and end dates are given here on them, it's not easy to see if there are any available slacks here. Okay, he mentions about the problem as well. She mentioned the problems with activity diagrams are correctness of activity diagrams is difficult to check, in fact. Suppose that your task A and task B takes like this. They can be done in parallel and both be finished within 4 weeks. Information is insufficient to tell just by looking at this. Can they go in parallel or not? They do not allow express distribution of effort within a task. They do not reflect the duration effort of each task well. because all the nodes are equal size. And the important one is they do not allow to indicate slack, and it just have a simple view of activities and tasks. There are no loops, no conditions here defined. We can have better tools for that. For example, Gantt chart is one of them. Okay, this is your breakdown of work packages, and this is your activity on the node diagram. But this is Gantt chart version of it. You see, here you can see slacks. In which areas I have some slack or I have some relaxed parts. Okay, as you see, the shaded parts are, these ones are shaded areas indicate slack. I can be comfortable here. Okay, don't get too comfortable, but you can be comfortable. Since it takes only 1 week, but you can finish it until this time because the other tasks will be waiting. And the ones without the shade are mostly on the critical path. These has to be finished at that time. As you see, this one is very important, crucial. These ones are all pretty crucial. They don't have any slacks. You can see from the Gantt chart more easily. It's more explanatory, more clear. Activities are represented by rectangles here, and milestones are represented by diamonds again. You can see your milestones. And size indicates the duration related to the timeline. You have this y-axis here reserved for time, and this one is x-axis is reserved for your rectangles, your bar charts, your tasks. Okay. Replanning is required. Okay, I hope we don't replan, but in real life we usually need to replan. It needs to be done if you try to achieve too much in too little time. It often happens. It happens quite often. What is the approach? Iterate the following steps until you get a correct schedule. Rethink the interdependencies between activities. Okay, I mean, are these well, or can I, let's say, think of them in other way? See, these dependencies, can I change them? I think about it. Okay, that's one way of re-evaluating or replanning the stuff. Redo estimates for effort and duration of each tasks. Okay, am I sure that these all take this much of effort and duration? Can I cut them down, especially this part? Okay, especially this part, can I take it down? Okay, I look at it. And reschedule tasks if required, and rethink the aims of as you go backwards. Aims and objectives may be over, and redo work breakdown structure. If you do this, you need to redo the work. If you do this part, it means that you need to identify your breakdown structure as well. As you see, if there are major problems, you can go back to objectives. Where are they? Look at this. Yes, it can be cumbersome, but it can help. These were your objectives. Let's rethink about them. Okay, then you go ahead and when you rethink about them, you go ahead and plan this again into, see, you plan this in another way. I mean, you break down objectives, you go back to work breakdown chart to update or to make your project more realistic, conforming the deadlines. Anyway, this is expected, so because no plan is perfect, no plan is set in stone. The plans can change even on the run. After you start the project, you may need to change or update your plan. Depending on the depending on the situation, I mean, what you encounter.